So in architecture school, you have every semester something we call a studio. And essentially, there's a big project you have to do. One semester we were building an airport and figuring out all the terminals. One semester we had to build an Italian villa and figure out the layout and the structure and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so you have this studio and a big project. And at the end of that semester, you have a jury. So you essentially have to take your project, what you've put together, and put it in front of a panel of judges who are professional architects, instructors at the school, and present in front of your classmates as well. And kind of scary, kind of a big deal. And you print out these big 3-foot by 4-foot boards that go on the wall that have all the plans and the sections and the diagrams and the renderings and drawings of what the building would look like. You build this big model. So I did a lot of using, using razor blades to cut out shapes from cardboard and using super glue to glue things together and like all that stuff, right? You have to present it and show what your design is and explain why why you did it and why it's awesome, essentially, for your grade. Because this is what you're graded on. You work on it all semester and this is what you're graded on. No pressure, no pressure. And so as a straight A student, this was, as you can imagine, a little bit stressful for me because I was used to being able to control the outcome, to control my grades, to do the work, and then get the right grade, right? To study for the test and then get the grade based on that. But here I was being graded not based on typical testing type stuff, but based on what the worthiness of the project I was pulling together and how I was able to present it and how it looked from the outside, how it was perceived by this panel of judges. So there's this public speaking component, right? And there's this sales component. And it's really hard to prep for. So as someone who grew up, one, painfully shy, but also being such a perfectionist and such a straight A student, this was possibly one of, I'm going to say, the best growth potential things for me, but also at the time, very, very challenging. And so I came up and I was on my 3rd semester jury, and we had all of our boards laid out. I've been doing this for a few years. I had the groove down. I had done different projects, but I had never been super happy with my grades. Being a straight A student, I wasn't getting A's at these studio classes. And so this 3rd semester jury came up and all of my friends had their boards pinned to the walls in the studio hallway, and they had their models out on display. And I was laying my model out and putting my boards up with this pit in my stomach, like what was going to happen this time. And so we started doing our juries, and my best friend RJ, he went and he had created this beautiful model of the building he was creating. It had gorgeous boards and sketches. I mean, this man is an artist, and the judges loved him. They loved him. They loved what he created. They wanted to see more. And then my friend Dave, he went up and started showing all of his boards, and he was really persuasive when he was talking to the judges. I could tell he was fabulous on the sales end and the public speaking. And he was sharing why his design was the right solution. And they loved him too. And then it came my turn. And as the judges kind of rolled their chairs down to my corner of the room where my boards were up and my model was out, I took some deep breaths, and then I stood in front of what I had created that semester, and I shared it, and I shared from my heart, and I was so excited, and I just did what I could, and I got a C. And of course, my little straight A heart was like sinking into the ground and feeling horrible about this and wondering, okay, what could I do differently? Because when I opened my mouth to talk to the judges, I was rambling, and my boards I knew were not as pretty as RJ's. And I just didn't feel like I had anything that made me stand out. Anything that made them feel like they wanted to give me that grade, like what I was doing was really worthy and mattered and valuable. And I just didn't have that thing, right? And so getting a C for me felt like getting an F. Like if you're a little bit of a perfectionist and an overachiever, you totally get what I'm saying, right? And no, I wanted to fix this. So after that semester, I went and I took 2 art classes. I took a few public speaking classes. I started to try to hone those crafts because that's what RJ had done and that's what Dave had done to get A's that semester, to really be successful at architecture, at what we were doing at the time and what I was passionate about at the time. And eventually what I realized is that I could take all the art classes I wanted, I could take all the public speaking classes I wanted, but I was never going to be an RJ and I was never going to be a Dave. But what I was an Adria. And so what I really needed to figure out was what made me stand out, what made me irreplaceable, what made me that person that they should give me an A based on me showing the value in what I did. And that is what I set out to find. So I had a sense that I needed to find my thing. And I started to observe. I started to observe what it was that other people said about me or came to me for help on, what it was that when I was working on it in architecture school that I got super excited, what part of the project was really lighting me up. And I started to pay attention to that. And then when the next semester's jury came up and I had done my project and I had produced my boards and my model, they weren't really any more impressive than they had been the year before. It wasn't prettier. I had taken some public speaking classes and I knew how to express myself better, but I wasn't any better of a debater or a persuasive speaker. But what I had found out about myself is that my strength was in creating the user experience, was in looking at a building and seeing how a person would move through it. What would be their experience when they entered the door, when they walked through the lobby, when they went up the stairs? What would they see? What would their viewpoints be? How would they move through this? And this is stuff that I've taken with me to the work I do with clients now, right? Like your brand. How are people experiencing you from the outside? How are they understanding what it is you do? How are they perceiving you, right? And seeing your value. And so I realized that was my strength within architecture. And so when I stood up in front of those judges at that jury, a semester after they had handed me a C and I had felt like I was totally invisible and totally not standing out, when I got this thing that made me different, made me special, and I used it to my advantage, and then I told them. And I was at that jury. It wasn't like I was a better persuasive speaker, but I shared how you would move through this space and what it would feel like and why I had created these different pieces based on how someone was moving through it, what the experience would be like. When I shared all of those things, suddenly it changed things and I got an A. Not that that's the goal, right? But it was almost like representative of the shift that I had made and of how people on the outside could see it, how they could perceive what I had done differently and how I had come to this place. And so I know now, I know how important it is for you to know that thing about yourself, for you to know what makes you stand out. Because as a coach, you are like me in that architecture studio. You are doing that jury in front of a panel of your potential clients. And they need to know why they should listen to you, why they should hire you, why they should pay you. And you need to stand out from all the other people doing juries. So that's what we're talking about in this episode today. And a little side note, RJ and I are still friends at this point, even though it's been like a couple of decades maybe. And we are it's so funny. Last year when I was in Barcelona with Steve, randomly RJ and his boyfriend were also there at the tail end of our trip, and we met up for brunch on our very first morning when we were totally jet lagged and everything, but it was so cool. And this year we're flying to Malta in May. I'm very excited. And we're going to be staying with RJ and his boyfriend in London on the way out. And RJ and his guy are actually going to be in Malta around the same time as us. So maybe we'll meet up there. So funny how this works out. But just wanted to share because I don't know, this is stuff that gets me super excited. All right, so let's talk about what makes you stand out. All right, so there are 4 key elements to this for coaches when you are building your business online and when you want to stand out from the crowded market of all the other coaches who do the same thing. Because maybe there's other coaches who you've gotten niched down and honed in, but they still do the same thing. And you're like, well, but how can I set myself apart? So when you learn this 4-part formula I'm going to be sharing with you in a moment, you will know the kind of this matrix of things that you can use to really truly set yourself apart from them. All right. So the first 2 things I'm going to be sharing with you are the business end of things. So like a lot of what I talk about in this podcast, the things that really make people want to pay for your work, make your work super relevant to them and feeling valuable. And then the second 2 pieces of this 4-part formula are more of the personality-based things. And these are really, really important too, as you'll see. But the combination of all 4 of these is kind of magical, because if you have all 4 dialed in and you're really specific with all of them, nobody can be the same as you. Okay, tune in. Let's move forward to share this. Okay, so the first one is your solution. And I talk a lot about this on the podcast, so you can definitely go back and listen to other episodes on this around niche. The problem you solve. What is your solution? And this is key to making people want to pay you for something, right? We've talked a lot about this. So being as specific as possible on this problem that you're solving and what the solution is you provide, that is the first piece to standing out. And I've talked a lot about that, so I won't go too much deeper in that today. The second part is your skills. So what do you bring to the table? What are your tools in your tool chest? And I know I talk a lot about you shifting and pivoting from talking about your tools to talking about the problem you solve instead, right? Because we get so stuck in talking about our tool, talking about our modality, our certifications, our method, the process we take people through. But this is the time where you get permission to talk about your tools, because these do set you apart, and there's probably a way that you can combine them together in a way that makes it unique, and no one else has this combination of things that you have. Like, so maybe you're a yoga teacher and a life coach and a Reiki master, and you also have a certification in massage therapy, or maybe there's like this combo of tools, and you can say it in a way that makes it super powerful. So back in the episode I did with Holly Shaw, where we talked about fine-tuning part of your discovery call, she was both she did the coaching piece of things and she did hypnotherapy. So she could talk about how she combined those 2 tools together in order to make it an even more powerful experience. So see what I mean by tools? Okay. So that's your skills. So that's part number 2. So these are the business end parts, your solution and your skills. So now the personality end parts, the 2 personality pieces, the first one is your story. Now, you notice that I started off this podcast episode telling a story about my past in the architecture field and using it as kind of a metaphor for how you need to stand out in your coaching business. Well, stories are powerful. We learn through stories. We remember stories so much better than we remember facts. Stories are the lifeblood of us as humans. And so the more that you can use stories about yourself, about your business, your brand origin story, how you solve the problem for yourself, all these different pieces, the more connection you're going to have to your ideal clients, and the more they are going to see you as positioned to help them with this and see you as someone who is real that they want to get that support from. So part number 3 is your story. And then the final piece in this puzzle, the fourth part of this matrix, is what do you take a stand for? So what is that big idea behind your work? So if you had a TED Talk, what would your TED Talk be? I think of this as your message, your core message that everything comes down to, your big opinion that you have. This is the final piece in that puzzle that helps to really start to make you stand out. So you see how when you have all 4 of these S's, this matrix, your solution, your skills, your story, your stance, you have all 4 of these pieces dialed in and specific to you, that you're going to be completely different from anyone else. And this allows you to completely stand out, to set yourself apart, to have people to remember you for specific things. And for you to not be invisible anymore. This starts to build that platform and that you are memorable, that you are unforgettable. Because the podcast is unforgettable, and that's really our goal, to be unforgettable, but in a way that drives back to you as a business owner and gets you those clients who want to pay you. Because when you are the only one that they can hire to do what you do, that has your set of stories and stances and tools and all these different things, then they're not going to settle for anyone else. Then they're going to be feeling good to pay you the amount that is the right amount for you and the value that it is that you provide, because they're not into price shopping then. They want you, right? This is the way for them to want you. You are a one-of-a-kind coach then. So if this is something that kind of like you're getting on board for, and now you're feeling like, okay, well, what are my 4 S's? How can I make this specific to myself? What is my solution and my skills and my story and my stance? What are these things for me? Then you're in luck. If you're listening to this in real time, then I'm leading a 5-day challenge starting March 19th, 2018, and I would love to have you be part of it. This is essentially 5 days to stand out from the sea of other coaches who do the same thing online, so that you really can make yourself irreplaceable and make yourself that stand out, one-of-a-kind coach that people don't settle for anyone else. So if this is something that you want to do with me, if you want to play, I haven't run a challenge. This is so crazy, okay? I have not run a challenge since over a year ago on my own. I did joint challenges with my biz besties, but it's been over a year since I did my last Clarity Challenge. So I'm really, really excited about the Standout Challenge, because basically the Clarity Challenges that I ran in the past were some of my favorite parts of my business. We got a lot of ladies playing in there, a lot of energy going, a lot of clarity, and just like boom, aha moments happening. And I would love to do that for you too. I would love to get to know you. I'd love to play. I'd love to give you a little bit of support, because there will be coaching with me during this challenge, and there will be ways for you to really get this personalized to you. So if that interests you, then go ahead and hop on over to bit.ly/5 days to stand out. So that's bit.ly/5 days to stand out. And I'm super excited about this. Like this has been kind of the thing that I wake up in the morning each morning, like wanting to plan out different things and starting to like write the email sequences for and start to outline the Facebook Lives I'm going to be doing each day and all that kind of stuff. So yes, so let's play. So go ahead and join me in that. If you really want to figure out these things and personalize this to you for how you stand out, it's totally free. It's one of my favorite things. Go to bit.ly/5 days to stand out and join, and you'll get the details for what to do next in your inbox. All right. That is it for this episode for today. Stay tuned, and I'm going to be sharing with you 3 marketing mistakes that cost coaches clients. That is coming up next week on the podcast, and I want you to be able to make sure that you're not doing any of these things. My goal is really to give you hope. So with the Standout Challenge, with the podcast episode I'm doing next about marketing mistakes, I want you to have hope that if something doesn't seem like it's working in your business, if it feels like you're not getting the clients and maybe you should just quit, I want you to have the hope that there could be these small little tweaks that can turn everything around for you. I know that's been the case for myself, for my clients. And so I want to inspire you too and help you get there as well. So with that being said, I will sign off and I will talk to you again next week and hopefully see you in the challenge.